Hi, folks. Today I want to talk about a 1944 horror slash thriller called The Lady and the Monster. It's one of the several films featured on this collection, the Republic Pictures Horror Collection. I've never seen this film before, and I'm really glad I got to see it. I didn't know going into it that it was actually the first film version of the story Donovan's Brain, which was a novel written by Kurt Siodmak. Kurt Siodmak was known for writing The Wolfman, Frankenstein Meets the Wolfman, and other stories in the horror sci-fi genre. So really, having found that out as I started watching it, really, I said, "Oh, this is really going to be something I'm interested in," because there was a 1953 film called Donovan's Brain that, as a child, never interested me because it was about a brain. It wasn't about an actual monster, and back then, I just wanted to see monster movies mostly as a kid. So this movie actually starts out with really, really great atmosphere. There's a castle in Arizona, of all places, which is an interesting, different location. We're not talking about Transylvania or someplace like that, but really well filmed with the shadowy details and kind of like creepy feel to it. You feel like you're watching one of the Universal horror classics in a way with the setting. The trappings are all there. So that's the first thing that won me over. As we went on, we see that there's a doctor who happens to drag a leg too. He's got a leg problem, played by Eric von Stroheim, and he's kind of a dedicated scientist, the typical kind that will probably go too far and does. And Eric von Stroheim is known, of course, for Sunset Boulevard. I remember seeing a movie with him a long time ago that I haven't been able to track down a good copy of, from 1935, called The Crime of Dr. Crespi. And it's funny because in that movie, I remember he plays a doctor who smokes constantly, and everybody smoked in those days. In this movie, he smokes a lot as well. So, a smoking scientist who has an assistant played by Richard Arlen, and I think that Richard Arlen probably gives the best performance of the movie. Richard Arlen, right away, I recognized him as being the lead, other than Charles Lawton, of course, in the 1933 horror classic Island of Lost Souls. And yeah, he does a great job in here as a man who becomes possessed telepathically by the brain of a dead criminal named Donovan, who was a multimillionaire. And there's a whole bunch of a woven plot there connected as to what happens with the crimes and what the assistant has to do once he's possessed by the brain. So it's a very interesting story, and it really elevated it somewhat. A problem I had with this movie was the leading lady, Vera Ralston. Vera Ralston, I don't think I've heard of her before. I could tell right away that she was kind of rusty. She didn't really act too well here. Didn't really like her performance. In fact, it was a non-performance. Her acting is not really up to snuff, and she's kind of a stiff in sometimes, in some ways, and even her expressions, her facial expressions, sometimes don't register well. Upon watching a little bit of the commentary track to the DVD or Blu-ray, I should say, afterwards, I noticed that. She actually turned out to be somebody who didn't really speak English well and learned all her words phonetically. And it kind of shows. I know that was supposed to be the same deal with Bela Lugosi, but I think Bela Lugosi was a better actor than Vera Ralston. What's amazing to me is that she gets top billing here, and from what I learned after watching the movie, they tried to make her into the star. They really promoted her, wanted her to be a star. I didn't think she had any star quality whatsoever. The only really downfall of this movie, and even physically, I didn't think she was all that. You know what I mean? So that's just a matter of personal opinion, but your mileage may vary. But anyway, this movie's pretty good. I would say that on a scale of 4 stars, I'd give it 2.5, which isn't bad. Definitely worth a watch, and it held my interest. So there you go. 1944, Republic Pictures, The Lady and the Monster.